elect in Kisumu West. That's the latest from Kisumu County. Right now, I want us to cross over back to the capital, Nairobi. My colleague Mudhoka has been pitching camp at the Bomas of Kenya. He's our man inside the auditorium. So keen interest in terms of exactly what IEBC has mentioned within the last hour or so. Any updates in terms of the numbers? What are the screens showing? Mudhoka, good evening. What's the latest from the auditorium?
Good evening, Jesse, and right here at the Bomas of Kenya, which is the Tallying Nerve Center for the presidential election, IEBC officials led by IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati, who doubles up as the returning officer for the presidential election, seem prepared to burn the midnight oil as the tallying of presidential election results constituency by constituency and the subsequent announcement of the winners in each constituency enters the point of no return. So far, 95 constituencies, Jesse, have seen their presidential election results announced by the respective IEBC commissioners, and in a country where we have 290 constituencies, where we anticipate all 290 constituencies to see the election results for the presidency announced right here at the Bomas of Kenya, we still have 185 left. And so just looking at the numbers so far, of course, 195 are left. That is plus diaspora. That takes it to 196. And looking at the numbers that were released just an hour ago by the IEBC commissioners regarding the constituencies that are the latest to submit the forms 34A and the forms 34B, have them verified against the electronic ones and give the IEBC the green light to announce them. Looking at Embakasi East, that is the home turf for Babu Owino, who is an MP and an ally to the Azimio presidential flag bearer Raila Odinga. Raila garnered 53,982 votes, while his main competitor, UDA's Deputy President William Ruto, garnered 30,976 votes. In that regard, Wahiga David Mwaure of the Agano Party garnered 272 votes, while George Wajakoya of the Roots Party garnered 388 votes. And so we have seen other constituencies, among them Igembe Central, that is in Meru County, Kisumu Central, and Kibwezi West in Makueni County, Olkalau in Nyandarua, Mukuruweni in Nyeri County, as well as Matungulu in Machakos, Kipkelion West, and Belgut in Kericho, and Mogotio in Baringo as well accompany the first one, that is Embakasi East, in the list of constituencies that were being announced earlier today, that is about an hour ago, by the IEBC commissioners. And there have been a series of communications from the commissioners regarding this exercise that indeed enters home stretch, because it has been 3 days of tallying and announcement of winners per county. And so we still have the window still continues to get slimmer by the day. And so the announcements, first, you mentioned earlier on, Jesse, is that there have been some limitations as to who are supposed to access this Uchaguzi Center, the epicenter for the tallying and the announcement of how these presidential candidates have fared on. And earlier on, most people could access this particular hall. But right now, as you mentioned, indeed, the number and the types and the categories of people who can access has been limited to one, that is the agents of the presidential candidates, two, the election observers, three, various diplomats, and of course, us, the members of the press. But again, that message seemed to target a number of allies to the presidential candidates who had swarmed and crammed this particular hall. But again, the IEBC seems to have softened its stance regarding that particular communication, because even amid those directives being issued earlier on by Commissioner Abdi Gulie, the various politicians and the allies are still in this particular center. And so in that case, the IEBC seems to, of course, have softened its stance. But again, it did give an update on the number of returning officers who have been attended to and those who are still on the queue. And just looking at the numbers, according to the IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati roughly an hour ago, 265 returning officers arrived here, and 141 as at now have already been attended to, have already submitted the physical forms 34A and the physical forms 34B, and have seen the results from the constituencies where they managed the presidential election announced. Now, a number, well, looking at it, 124 are still on the queue, and this means that they are waiting for the IEBC to attend to them and have their results announced. And in that regard, right now, we are seeing some changes, and we are seeing a lot happening. Look at that particular podium. That is where IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati is currently, and he is accompanied by a number of commissioners who are having a meeting with the IEBC returning officers from the constituency level, and that is the final stop that they have to go through, because according to the IEBC, earlier on, before it changed and did an overhaul to the entire process of receiving and the verification of the forms 34A and the forms 34B, this particular stop is where, after the entire verification has happened, the commissioners have to go, rather the returning officers have to go to Chebukati with their documents and present them to him, and later on leave, and then the results are announced. And so, as I mentioned earlier on, a number had already seen Chebukati, and that is, looking at that number, it is 141 where their results have been processed. But of course, just doing a rectification to what I had stated earlier, not results from 141 constituencies have been announced, but it is indeed results, as I earlier stated, from 95 constituencies. And so the journey to 290 continues to pick up the pace, and we here have pitched camp, Jesse, just waiting, and our eyes and our ears are on this particular center, because any moment from now, actually, we expect more announcements, more numbers and more figures, and which could definitely mean a lot to the presidential race, whose culmination is the succession of the outgoing president Uhuru Kenyatta. Jesse.
Muthoka, before I let you go, it would be interesting to inform Kenyans about the process as the returning officers actually get to the bomas of Kenya. How many stations have been set aside this time round in order to perhaps hasten the process and give Kenyans what they're waiting for, the results of the presidential election? Any changes in terms of the process right there at the auditorium?
Well, the process earlier on was that once the returning officers from the various constituencies arrive here, there are desks where they have to meet the IEBC clerks who are aiding the IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati in verifying the forms 34 and the forms 34B. And then later on, once the verification has been done, then the particular collation of the results, especially in the forms 34B, are supposed to go to the form 34C that is being managed by the IEBC chair Wafula Chebukati, and that is where the entire collation is taking place. But that particular system, that particular process has been overhauled, because right now the particular ROs, once they get here, they have been required to first go through Chebukati with the documents that they have, and then they later on proceed with them to the clerks. And then once they are done with the clerks, they can leave. And so that is the process. And the clerks, actually, earlier on, they had just 4 desks, and it seemed as though the desks could not manage the surging number of returning officers who have been here, camping here since Wednesday.
Okay.
So the number of desks have been increased to around 10 right here, just to fasten the process, because it is indeed right now for the IEBC a race against time.
All right, Muthoka. Well, thanks for that update. Quite detailed, I must say. Our man on the ground, Muthoka, right there, just coming to us from the bomas of Kenya. More details to follow, of course, even as our camera lenses are trained at the main dais right there, where the respective IEBC officials are announcing in a timely manner the results that have been verified